Hi, I'm Hannah Wallace and welcome to EBAday 2021. Kindly calling into our virtual studio now is Stefano Favale, Managing Director and Global Head of Global Transaction Banking at Intesa Sanpaolo. So, Stefano, thank you very much for calling in.
Thank you very much, Anna. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's good to have you on. Now, with over 20 years in the banking industry and extensive experience in digital and transformational projects, responsibilities in commercial banking and a leadership role in the business payment community, you're in a great position to explain how the payments world is changing. So let's start there. What are the top trends you're seeing from instant payments to cross borders? Let's start there.
No, thank you very much. I think I've never seen many things happening in the payment field. I think what is happening has been happening in the last 2 years, has never happened in the last 20 years at least. And it's a very vibrant and exciting environment. The agenda is quite crowded for the next 2-3 years because of a lot of projects, systemic projects that we have to implement. But I think what I see as trend, thanks, let me say, even if it's not the proper word to the pandemic, we have accelerated the need to, be even more digital, more instant, frictionless. And so everything that was before the pandemic a topic where we are working on is now accelerating even more. And because of the, also players, competitors like fintechs, which are even more, aggressive and active. Now we have seen the trend on e-commerce. But beside the e-commerce and the double-digit growth that they released, also all the issues on fraud, online fraud. And so what we understood would be a trend is the importance of the, cybersecurity and the implementation of a new way to, tackle the fraud issue and the cybercrime. And I think there is a huge space of cooperation among financial players. And this is something where we can really bring something with value added now, because, in the dark web, all the criminals are working together, and I think this field has to be tackled together as the financial system, regulators, players, and newcomers. And I think this is quite a relevant trend. Moreover, what I see is, the different, particularly in the instant payment space, the, different players trying to, gain market share. Now we see card circuits stepping into the correspondent banking. We see a fintech like TransferWise, now Wise, trying to be even more active, not only on retail, but scaling up on SMEs. And so also the instant payment, which is not a big issue for big treasurer and corporates, start to become interesting for SMEs. And they started with this, kind of very easy products, leveraging on the efficiencies of the banks, which sometimes managing the cross-border retail payments as 15 years ago in terms of pricing and, processes. So they're gaining, market share, and we have to really defend with a different mindset as a banking system, which cannot be only revenue defend mindset. No, so we have to really try to bring something more. I think there are several initiatives, systemic initiatives, maybe too many, because there are regulators, infrastructure players. But I think, it's quite vibrant because at the end of the day, I think as Intesa Sanpaolo, we will not go for one solution fits everything, all. But I think we should define an overlay where we can implement it, particularly in the cross-border space, the different solutions, if it's worthy for our customers to, address payments in that corridor, specific corridor, or in another. So I think it will be even challenging as a, strategic thought, the new model for the banking, for the bankers.
Well, thank you very much for setting the scene there. And like you say, a lot going on. So What would you say is the value of banks today then, and what role might the EBA play within that context? What about that?
I think EBA, let me say, first of all, is a European asset, no? And it is quite relevant because only recently, in the last 12 years, there has been a strong debate about the, let's say, importance of the payments as a strategic infrastructure, particularly in Europe, where, I mean, the same ECB Commission is stating that we are too much depending on US or, let's say, Chinese or big tech solutions. No? So I think this is quite important mindfulness and consciousness of what is important. And sometimes we try to, let's say, discuss about let's build a European asset, but we already have a European asset, is EBA. I think EBA is quite relevant for the role that is playing because, as a matter of fact, all the instant payments, huge part of the instant payments running all around Europe is managed today by the, let's say, EBA platform. So I think this is quite a success and is even scaling up. And I think for that reason, EBA can really play a role in, I think, the interoperability in particular, because as infrastructure, has always made this kind of job, no? In terms of trust, completeness, ancillary business and services. So I think it can really play a role in interconnecting the different, let's say, platform additional networks, no? So in terms of reach. And this is quite relevant, particularly if we go in the cross-border space, where, you know, currency and other, let's say, complexity more than the domestic, the European market are popping up. So I think EBA can really make the difference in building up a sort of microcosmos where it can deliver for the banks, particularly for the, let's say, small and medium banks, which are always sometimes don't have all the capex and capital budget that the larger corporations and large banks have. So I think it can really play an important role in different and new trends like request to pay, trying to establish EBA in a more broader, let's say, space. No, I think instant payment can definitely be something used on in-store payments. I think I know it's a challenge. We already managed to, I mean, on the online payments, which is a quite easier use case, but definitely if we want to enlarge the usage of instant payment, then to decrease the cost, this is the, let's say, the way, and EBA, I think, can make the difference on that field.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really interesting. It's good to get your perspective on that. So taking all of that into account then, what's the role of other financial institutions, from central to global banks and non-financial operators such as the fintechs, when they're dealing with the payments framework? What kind of scenario should we expect, especially further down the line?
Yeah, I think, again, now there is a strong debate on central bank digital currency, for example. In this field, it seems that the European Central Bank, all the central banks are very active, looking for, to ensure financial stability. But I think there is an angle which is quite relevant for payments, because at the end of the day, if we implement a digital euro, we are going to anyway jeopardize in part let's say, the payments in store. Now we can say that we put this digital euro beside the cash and beside the electronic payment, but at the end it will be something quite relevant to be implemented to ensure, the stability and alternatives to stable coin and other initiatives. But definitely this is something quite relevant to be analyzed in terms of impact. But particularly looking at what is the goal we want to achieve, as Euro, as central bank. And I think the role of the central bank will be even more important and can be really a stimulus in trying to, let's say, develop a strategic and common infrastructure. I think it's important that they are not going only to, they have to let the commercial banks manage and do their job, let's say, the interaction with customers. This is quite relevant. And I think, moreover, it's important that the central banks can establish rules. Now, why I say that? Because if I look at the open banking field, what has happened? We set, let's say, the standards, but at the end we have a lot of fragmentation in Europe. So if it's something important, it's something that will make the difference, let's say, in terms of a geopolitical position, we have to do things achieving the goals, scaling up quickly if we want to tackle, a potential DM initiative or a Chinese, let's say, extension of the the digital one. So this is quite relevant, and moreover, I think one of the leading role will be of the fintechs on payments. What I see is all the fintechs which are approaching in a bank-friendly mode, they are having success. So they are developing. So I think this can be really, again, a stimulation to do better. I think level play field still remain a topic to be addressed in terms of regulation. It cannot be that you can get, the license in one European country and you can manage with the passporting, in all the other countries with different level of supervisory or surveillance. This cannot be. And particularly, we have assisted during the last 12 months in some cases which are horror histories that we should avoid. So it means that the regulators should again address that, trying to set up rules and ask due diligence on compliance before that these kind of players are getting millions of customers. Otherwise, they will be in difficulty. And let me say on BTech, this will be the real challenge because they are closed ecosystem, they are resilient, they are managing technology, and I mean this is the most let's say worry part of the story because they really can move faster, and I mean here, let's say, we should try to really work together as a system to again ensure same level play field and avoid monopoly. When I was young, we studied probably Anna that in US they approach to break up monopolies. This at least was the economic books I studied. So in this case, we should work together, trying to approach in a more let's say fair way. This kind of very big monopolies. But I think this is as a matter of fact something we have to cope with.
Well, as you say, still a lot of work to be done, but some really exciting developments ahead. But Stefano, we'll leave it there today, and I hope we get to catch up further down the line. But thank you.
Thank you very much, and enjoy the EBAdays. Ciao, Anna.